Yo ho everybody, and welcome to another edition of Yinzer on Hockey. Before we begin, make sure you go down below, hit that like button, click the subscribe button, and make sure you click that little bell so you stay up to date on all the off-season happenings. So today's video came as a request to me from my brother, who is big into the fantasy aspect of sports, and there was an article published last week one day for fantasy sleepers and on NHL.com. And he wanted me to take a look at these projections from the NHL.com and give my perspective as to what their potential is. Not from a fantasy aspect, but just from an overall hockey aspect. So I went through it. I looked at the list, did some research on the listed candidates, and pulled 5 names off of that list and decided to do my take on their potential for the upcoming season. So first up on the list is Pavel Buchnevich. I'm terrible with Russian names sometimes, but I think it's Buchnevich. Left wing, right wing for the New York Rangers. He is projected this coming season to play top line with center Mika Zibanejad and left winger Chris Kreider. And last season he had in 74 games 14 goals, 29 assists for 43 points. So he's already proven to be a productive player in the past, and that was with an average of about 15 minutes of ice time per game. And I suspect with him being a top line winger now that he's probably going to average in the 17 to 18 minute range, which can only increase his production. If I was to project his upcoming season with those line mates as well as playing top power play minutes, I would probably put him in the 55 to 60 point range if I was to project. Obviously, the New York Rangers roster over the past year and a half has undergone some major changes, and a lot of the guys that they had relied on for scoring in the past are no longer there. And I think that Buchnevich can add some of that scoring punch back to this roster. The next player I wanted to look at was Carter Hutton, goaltender for the Buffalo Sabres, part of the basically all-new Buffalo roster for this upcoming season. Last year with St. Louis, he played in 32 games. He had 17 wins, 7 losses, 3 overtime losses, a .931 save percentage, and a 2.09 goals against average. Led to him getting this big contract in Buffalo, where he's going to be the unquestioned number 1 goaltender. So you're going to get a lot more opportunities to have him in your fantasy lineup based on that alone, because he's going to be a 50 to 55 game guy instead of a 30 game guy. I do suspect Buffalo's a young team, so they're going to go through some transition with the defensive mindset of the game. He's probably going to face a lot more shots in Buffalo than he faced at St. Louis. I think St. Louis is one of the more underrated defensive teams. All 5 of their skaters play defense all the time, and they're one of the best teams to watch from a defensive aspect. So he's going to face a lot more shots. His stats are probably going to go down. I look for him to be more in the 905 to 915 range, probably 2.5 to 2.7 goals against average. That would be an expected year for Carter Hutton this year. So I do think that there's going to be some drop-off in his statistics, but there's also going to be increased opportunity. I still think he's a very good goaltender. It's taken him a while to peak at the NHL level, but I think now that he's arrived, he's going to be one of the top goaltenders for the next few years. Next candidate on my list is Tomas Hertl for the San Jose Sharks. Versatile player, plays all 3 forward positions, center, left wing, and right wing. Early projections via Daily Faceoff has him playing second line left wing along with Logan Couture at center and Jonas Donskoy on his right wing. That is a very potent line. Couture is one of the best puck movers, one of the best center icemen in the league right now. So there's going to be opportunities for Hertl to score based on that alone. He's probably going to be a second power play unit guy, so potential's there to score some power play points. Last year in 79 games, he had 22 goals, 24 assists for 46 points, was a -2, averaging 18 minutes per game. With Evander Kane coming in, his minutes are going to drop a little bit now that Evander Kane is a full-time member of the San Jose Sharks now, taking that top-line role. But if one of the top-line guys gets hurt, the likelihood is that Hertl would either center the second line or move up to the first line, depending on who the injured player is for San Jose. So he could get more ice time in that regard. But I think the 45 to 55 point range is probably his peak, and I would expect that to stay similar next year as well. He's a very talented player, but San Jose has so many scorers on their team that there's just not enough pucks to get everybody into the 60 to 70 point range. So I think 45 to 55 points is a reasonable expectation for Tomas Hertl. Next on my list is Zach Hyman of the Toronto Maple Leafs. Obviously, when you add a guy like Tavares, everybody on the roster kind of, gets kind of brought up a little bit. Their expectations are, raised a little bit higher. However, with Zach Hyman, it's a little bit different because he is going to play second line left wing on a line with John Tavares and Mitch Marner. Both of those guys are points machines. They produce. So there's obviously going to be plenty of opportunities for him to pick up assists and some goals. He's probably going to have to be the gritty guy on that line that goes into the hard areas and can pick up some scrap goals that way. So I definitely see Hyman having an outstanding year this year from a fantasy perspective. Last year in 82 games, he had 15 goals, 25 assists for 40 points. I would expect those numbers to be probably in the 60 to 70 point range with those line mates. So he is definitely a guy that the deeper you get into a fantasy draft, he's going to look more appealing if you get into the later rounds and he's still available, because that line is going to be one of the toughest second line matchups in the NHL. The last guy on my list here is Jacob Vrana of the Washington Capitals. Not a lot of turnover in the Washington Capitals roster, but Vrana during the playoffs last year kind of developed into a depth scoring threat. He'll be playing on a line this year, most likely starting the season with Nicholas Backstrom at center, TJ Oshie on the wing. Backstrom's kind of been reinvigorated playing this second line center role instead of the additional responsibility of playing top line center with Ovechkin. I think he's really comfortable playing this second line center role, and Oshie had a better year in the playoffs because of it, and I think Jacob Vrana is also going to get a lot of added benefit from Backstrom being that much better in a second line center role. Also, Vrana playing that left wing with Backstrom and Oshie, he's going to have to be the gritty guy on that line. So he's going to be the guy in front of the net, cleaning up garbage goals and picking up points that way. So his potential is way high this year, I think. Last year in 73 games, he had 13 goals, 14 assists for 27 points, averaging 12 minutes and 30 seconds on ice. Again, if the projection stands true, and my projections come via dailyfaceoff.com, I will link that site in the description below. But if he is projected to be a second line guy, then obviously 12 minutes and 30 seconds is the low end of what we can expect. He'll be more of a 14.5 to 16 minute type guy, and that additional ice time creates additional opportunities for scoring. Again, he's going to be that guy playing the gritty areas, and I think that that his potential is very high. There was quite a few other sleeper candidates listed on the article, which I will link in the description below as well, of different candidates that have high impact fantasy potential from deeper in the draft. If fantasy is your thing, or if you want to hear me talk more about fantasy, let me know in the comments below. It's something that I can definitely try to cycle into the rotation. But who is your candidates for a dark horse player that, you know, people are kind of not as high on? Maybe your own sleeper candidates. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think of that. Let me know in the comments below if you want me to do more fantasy coverage. It's something that I'm not overly familiar with, but I can adapt myself. I can do the extra research if I have to, and get that information out to you guys as needed. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe on the video, and until I see you next time, have a good day.